The main thing that attracted me to this industry of landscaping and gardens and kind of my life's work here is its ability to improve people's lives. And that's what we've tried to stress, is to approach it in a way where it's a life-improving endeavor, whether you do your garden, whether you're thinking about it in a city or around schools or wherever, that it makes our lives better. We go through a list of items that I'd like to review today that make sure that it's going to be a life-improving endeavor. And we try to get away from landscaping or horticulture just as ornamental, and instead of just something you walk through to get to the front door in your front yard, we try to make it something that you experience in ways beyond that, and that it improves your life in ways beyond that.
If you find our video helpful, be sure to like it, subscribe, and click on the bell so you are notified every Sunday when we post a new video. Check out our website and follow us on social media too.
Everything is planned and installed and designed for the purpose of those people that are going to be using it. Gardens Are for People was kind of inspirational to me. There's a section in it that says build a garden terrace where you will use it, and he goes through and says if it's for sleeping, it should be quiet. If it's for shelling the peas, it should be sheltered from wind, and if it's for drinking, it should be level. So create useful spaces means that we try to make it a useful garden. In this case, you see a little area. This could be, we could use this for shelling the peas. I probably need a table about right here to put the peas on, but you can also use this to talk to neighbors, to read the paper. So it's a place, kind of a private little sanctuary place in your garden that you could use for whatever. And then to have some circulation through the garden, which we'll show you in this case, that makes the garden what I call interactive. So you're encouraged to walk through it, experience it from different vantage points. So the interactive part of this garden is created by this path, which we used a steel edging to define, and then we used this 3/8 inch California gold gravel, and it's on top of decomposed granite, and so that it's firm, it's easy to walk on. You get a little bit of a crunch, but you don't sink in. And it is centrally located between the grape vineyard and the citrus grove, which we'll be describing later, and it's centered on a fig tree, a black mission fig, and that fig almost acts like a piece of sculpture. So the second part of making our lives better is addressing environmental factors which can make our life better in a lot of different ways, sometimes financially or just in terms of creating a better place for us to live. One is to be aware of saving water and energy. In terms of saving water, we're in a garden here at my house that had like a 5,000 square feet of lawn, and we took all of that out because of its high water use. In this case, we replaced that lawn with a grape vineyard little dwarf grape vineyard that we water with drip, and then other edible and bearing plants that we water with drip. The overall effect is much lower water use. In terms of energy, we're on a south exposure here, so with a south exposure you want tall trees that can block that high angle of southern sun, and yet if you have solar, which you can see solar on this house, they can't be so tall that you'll block all of the sun. So we have 2 Italian poplar on either side of the house that are tall and do a nice job of shading the house. From the south, from the west, we have a big deodar cedar that's getting close to 100 years old now. And then we have 2 smaller crepe myrtles They're a Muskogee crepe myrtle that still get pretty good size and block sun, but let in light for the solar collectors on the house. Some other important environmental factors are with using traditional synthetic fertilizers, there's real problems with polluting the groundwater. The groundwater ends up with all of those nitrates and salts that come from leaching through. And the neat thing about using our John and Bob's products is they're organic. They connect themselves to the roots of plants and to the particles in soil to where they don't leach, and they also don't have salt, and they don't have the nitrate issues. And so from a groundwater standpoint, it's a much healthier way to garden. Plants can be useful in a lot of different ways. Maybe I've seen a clock being made out of plants where the numbers are pruned out of a plant called Santolina. More common is you can use plants as a screen, like a wall or even overhead. In this case at my house here, I've got a privet being a wall around my entry courtyard. Right behind me here, we used very useful plants in more than one way, which is they can be a screen and they can produce edible food. In this case, I used Pixie Crunch apples and I pruned them into what you might call an espalier, very informal espalier. I just pruned them flat without a wall nearby, and so they screen the neighbor and they produce these fantastic Pixie Crunch apples. And we have that same thing going on in many other parts of this garden where we're using herbs like oregano and mint and rosemary. The oregano I use as a staple of my diet. You can see it right here. Interesting thing about oregano is so I dry it for about 2 weeks when it's blooming, and then the best part of the oregano to use as an herb is the flower. So we dry it, just set it out, let it dry, and then crush it up, and you come up with this fantastic smelling oregano that pretty much starts out every recipe with olive oil, garlic, and oregano. That's in every recipe I make. And then at this garden we have little mandarin oranges so that they don't get very tall. We have actually Pixie grapes too as a little vineyard. A dwarf weeping mulberry that produces mulberries that are tremendous. Tastes like maybe a combination of boysenberry and strawberries. So we have plants being useful from the standpoint of a sculpture. The fig tree is like a piece of sculpture. The privet is like a wall, and then lots of edible plants producing food that we can use to make us healthy and sustain us. In my citrus grove and my olive grove, we actually have California poppies, which are acting, I considered it like a cover crop. So I planted California poppies to function as a cover crop. I also planted lupin, and the lupin have just come up marginally. The California poppies have done very well. They're getting close to the tail end of this year. As soon as they start going to seed, I just take them out. Either cut them down or pull them out, and then we just have the crops without the cover crop. I actually had California poppies in the grape vineyard also, but they kind of went crazy and I ended up with a lot of weeds, so I just cut them down to nothing, and next year I'm going to try something a little different. I think I'm going to use paludosum as a cover crop right in between the grape vineyard rows. Simulating how a cover crop would look. In the case of paludosum, it has a little white flower on it, so it'll stand out and look pretty fantastic, I think. Remember where you are is a reference to the fact that usually the garden is going to be at some building or structure that has a certain style about it, or maybe lack of style, and maybe the area around it is distinctive for one reason or another. And I like to match the style of the garden to the architecture of the house, or even sometimes to something about the area that you're in. In this case, my house is built in 1922. called a classic revival style with an Italian influence. And the Italian, I kind of drew on the Italian influence and built a little vineyard. And I used pixie dwarf grapes so that we didn't have something that overwhelms the site. We used a row of citrus. Those are actually pixie mandarin oranges, and so that produces a very easy to peel orange with no seeds. And then behind the citrus grove, we used rows of a dwarf little olive tree called Little Ollie. And Little Ollie is pruned to look like a little olive tree. So we've got a vineyard, a citrus grove, and olive grove to make it look like an little Italian estate here. So that illustrates this idea of remember where you are, and that can manifest itself in many different ways. I think it's important to be aware of the style of the architecture where you are, and the climate and the realities, and try to of your existing climate, and try to celebrate that place rather than wish yourself away to some other place. And that's what we've done here in the Central Valley of California. That's hot, perfect place for growing crops, and recreating something that looks like it goes here, goes with the building, but has that Italian influence.
Hi friends, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell. If you have a question or just want to say hi, let us know in the comments below. If you want to learn more about our organic, pet-friendly products, then head over to our website, johnandbobs.com.